There are billionaires everyone knows. And then there's the one almost no one does. A man who turned a life of hidden pain into a global empire, all while staying completely out of the spotlight. Today, we're diving into the secret story of Hussain Sajwani.
And really, it all comes down to one big question, doesn't it? How on earth does someone take profound struggle and not just survive it, but turn it into unimaginable success? That's the mystery we're going to try and solve.
If you had to sum up his entire journey, this one phrase just nails it. A life shaped by quiet struggle and hidden resilience. This isn't a story about loud, flashy victories. It's about a deep, internal strength that most people never see. Okay, so to really get this guy, we have to start with this huge contradiction at the very center of who he is. I mean, really think about that for a second. We live in an age where if you're rich, you're famous. It's almost a rule. Yet here's a man who has built this massive, multi-billion-dollar empire, and chances are you've never even heard his name. He's the architect of a legacy built entirely in the shadows. So how does someone like that even come to be? Well, to understand the billionaire he is today, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning, to a childhood that was, frankly, forged in hardship. His story starts in Dubai, back in the early 50s. And from the get-go, life was a grind. By the time he was just 7 years old, he was already working in his dad's shop. Poverty wasn't some distant idea for him. It was what he woke up to every single day. And then, on top of all that, he loses his father. That's a moment that, you can imagine, just changes everything. And when we say hardship, we're not talking about a simple life. We're talking about a daily fight for the absolute basics. Imagine growing up in a home where you can't count on having electricity or even running water. The Dubai he knew as a kid is a completely different universe from the glittering city he'd later help create. And get this detail, in the scorching hot summers, the whole family would share a single room, just to be near the one air conditioner they had. It really paints a picture, doesn't it? It speaks to this deep loneliness, this quiet struggle. While all that hardship was making him tough on the outside, these quiet, isolated moments, they were building something else entirely on the inside. And that's really the heart of his story. It's all about resilience. But for him, resilience wasn't some motivational poster word. No, it was something forged, hammered into shape by the heat of that daily struggle, in the quiet of that loneliness, and through the pain of that loss. This became the bedrock of everything he would build. All right, so you'd think, with that kind of resilience baked into his DNA, his path forward would be a straight shot to success, right? Well, not exactly. In fact, his first big test as a young man wasn't a win at all. It was a complete, crushing failure. You see, his dream was pretty straightforward, something any family would be proud of. He wanted to become a doctor. So he packed his bags and headed off to medical school in Baghdad, carrying all the hopes of his family with him. But the dream, it crashed into a brick wall of reality. He failed. Just that one word, it says it all, doesn't it? The dream was over. And this wasn't just, retake a class kind of failure. This was huge. He failed his first year. Then he failed his second year. Think of the public humiliation, the quiet look of disappointment from your family. And maybe the worst part? He had to deal with all of that inner turmoil completely on his own. Honestly, a failure like that could have been the end of his story. But it wasn't. It didn't break him. And this right here is the turning point of the entire story. That quiet resilience, the stuff he'd been building his whole life without even realizing it, it kicked in. And that colossal failure, it somehow became the launch pad for his greatest success. See, he didn't just sit around and mope. He pivoted hard. He goes to the US, gets a totally different degree in industrial engineering, and then starts this catering company, which, by the way, got so successful, it was supplying the US Army. And then, in 2002, he makes the move that would change everything. He founded Demac Properties. But here's the absolute genius of it all. It's how he built it. Because he grew up with nothing, he was allergic to risk. So he came up with this brilliant model. Instead of pouring in his own cash, that's the little bar you see, he used his customers' money. That's the big bar. People would buy apartments off plan, before they were even built. And he used their money to fund the whole thing. The scarcity of his childhood taught him to be careful. And that caution, ironically, is what made him a billionaire. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all smooth sailing from there. He had other stumbles, like losing a bunch of money on some tech investments. But the big difference this time around, he had learned how to take a hit, learn from it, and just keep moving forward. Quietly, strategically.
And the result of all that quiet grit, that calculated perseverance? Billions. An empire built not on some flashy overnight idea, but on a lifetime of resilience, learning from failure, and just quiet, relentless determination.
So that brings us to today, and to the legacy this man has built. A legacy that's as complex as it is quiet.
Look, a story of this scale is never simple, right? On one hand, you have this incredible public achievement, a multi-billion-dollar real estate empire, a true global icon. But on the other hand, his journey hasn't been without its share of scrutiny over his business practices, and yeah, some legal challenges here and there. It's just part of the complex reality when you're talking about this level of ambition. But when you strip it all away, the story of Hussain Sajwani is really a story of quiet perseverance. It's about a kind of strength that was never meant for the spotlight. It was built, piece by painful piece, in the shadows of hardship and failure. And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? His life kind of proves that our biggest strengths, our deepest resilience, are often forged when nobody is watching. So it makes you wonder, what hidden resilience are you building right now in your own life?